provides forgiveness and his saving righteousness and judging righteousness on the cross. We access that by faith. Now, what's the consequence of that for us? It's hope. So what's the theme of chapters 5 through 8? It's hope. So we see, look at this. We have hope, assurance, 5:1 through 11. Hope in Christ's triumph over Adam's sin. Then we have hope because we have grace over the power of sin. And we have hope because of grace's power over the law. And then he ends with these great statements of assurance. So, our goal is to try to finish that by the time this class is over. There we go. Romans 5. So, we're righteous by faith. He talks about the consequences of justification. Since we're righteous by faith, we have peace with God. That's a fact. Right? Maybe some of you were taught your earliest days as a Christian. It's exactly right. That's a fact, not a feeling. Right? That's so right. It's a fact, not a feeling. You have peace with God whether you feel it or not if you're a Christian. Of course we want to feel it. And hopefully we do feel it sometimes, right? But it isn't that I feel really great in my relationship with God today and therefore I'm at peace with it. It's objectively true. If you're a believer, you're at peace with God whether you feel it or not. You may have the flu. You don't feel much at peace. Right? You may feel terrible. You know, when we feel sick, it's hard to feel at peace. But you're still at peace with God whether you feel it or not. And we have access to Him, and we rejoice in our afflictions. Right? We talked about those things before. I explained those things. All that hope, our hope is anchored in Christ's death. Why do we have hope? So because Christ died for the ungodly. Why do we have hope? Because Christ died for sinners. Why do we have hope? Because since we've been justified by His blood, we'll be saved through Him from wrath. Why do we have hope? Because while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God through the death of His Son. So do you see what I did? Christ died for the ungodly, right? Christ died for the weak. Christ died for the ungodly. Christ died for sinners. Christ died for His enemies. That's us, right? So our hope is anchored in history, right? Our hope is anchored in what Christ has done for us objectively in the cross. So that's the grounding of our hope. And it's the grounding of what he says, God's love has been poured out in our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us. That love is anchored in the great objective acts of God in Jesus Christ. So we have assurance. We have assurance. We've been justified by His blood, so we'll be saved. This is a future salvation. You see that? We'll be saved from His wrath on the last day. That wrath will be poured out on the last day. We have no reason to fear that anger of God on the last day. We're already justified. So we will be saved. Now, we're saved now, but here he's talking about future salvation, right? We're already reconciled, verse 10, because of His resurrected life. So we'll be saved by His life on that last day. So we're rejoicing. We have assurance. We know we're right with God. So hope. Okay. Next paragraph. About Adam's sin. We could talk a lot about this. Original sin. G.K. Chesterton. I love reading him. He was a Catholic. He hated Calvinism, by the way. Hated it. So he was wrong on that. Sorry about that. But he's good. Mostly. And G.K. Chesterton said, original sin is the most empirically verifiable of all Christian doctrines. Amen. Amen and amen. If you've had children, we parents, hopefully, it's true of us, you have an irrational love for your children. That's good. Have an irrational love for your children. And you also recognize they're sinners, right? They're just like you. They're sinners and they're selfish and they say me and mine and they fight. And some days, as parents, our own sin makes that difficult, right? As we deal with the children's sin. Well, where did that all come from? It came from Adam. He tells us that 5 times, right? By the one man's trespass, the many died. The many is everybody, right? Adam's one sin caused us all to die. From one sin, that's Adam's, came the judgment resulting in condemnation. Because of Adam's sin, all people everywhere are condemned. That's original sin. Original. It all goes back to Adam. We're not born into the world neutral. None of us would have invented this theology, right? My theology would have been, okay, we're all equal, we all start out equal, and then we can just choose which way to go, right? That'd be my theology, wouldn't it be yours? Come on, that'd be much more fair. Come on, what do you mean? We come into the world spring-loaded with sin and we're condemned before God before we've even started? How's that fair? Right? That's what the Bible says. By the one man's trespass, death reigned through that one man. Yeah, every single one of us dies because of Adam's sin. Well, because of our own sin too, but he's emphasizing Adam's sin. Somehow Adam's sin infects and pollutes us all, doesn't it? The only exception is Jesus. Through one trespass, there is condemnation for everyone. Look at that. One sin of Adam, we're all condemned. We're all guilty. We all participate in some way in Adam's sin. Wow. Who came up with this idea? My God did. Through one man's disobedience, the many were made sinners. His sin made us sinners. Oh, yes, but this bothers a lot of people. But remember what Chesterton said. We have one great argument on our side. Human life. Human history. The way human beings are. Right? So, Pascal, the great thinker, said, original sin. It's a scandal to human beings. It bothers them. But he says, apart from it, we can't explain ourselves. So it bothers us on the one hand, but on the other hand, that's the way it is. Can we give any apologetic for this? I don't think we can give any answer that makes everybody happy. I think we can give answers to a lot of things. But can we give an answer to everybody that makes everyone happy? I've always wished this, here, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss or whatever. I can pick up. Christian or non-Christian, here's my nice little package answer. And now take that, unwrap it, and okay, I'll become a Christian. So that's just not the way life is, right? And answers aren't like that. But here's my answer, which I'm totally satisfied with, but maybe you won't be. And it's this: God always intended us to be a family. That's one. God never intended us to live individualistic lives. God planned it so that the human race would be one organic whole. Therefore, no racism, right? We're one family. We're one family. Evolution has a problem with that, doesn't it? Then there might be different races coming from different backgrounds, and actually there might be a scientific basis for racism, right? Because, this group that evolved, they're actually smarter and better than that race that evolved. But biblically, there's no grounds for that, right? One human race, one historical person, Adam, all sin came from him. That's the way, and we see it in miniature. We see it in miniature in family life today. Now, there are exceptions, right? But, you know what? Guess what? My kids, our kids, Tom and Diane's kids, they're affected by us, how we raise them. For better or for worse. They are, right? It's true, your parents too. It's, what kind of family would it be like? You're the parent, and then the kid is like totally not affected by the parents whatsoever. But does that happen sometimes? Maybe. Really rare though. You can see the imprint of parents on children. That's the way God planned it, right? Okay, that's it for my apologetic. Thanks very much. Adam, so here's the next point I want to make. The next point I want to make is this. Adam introduced a huge mess into the world called sin. How bad is it? It's horrific. It's horrible. How bad is it? All of us would be suffering something worse than post-traumatic stress syndrome. Is that what they call it? Did I get that right? If we saw the evil that was done in the world, I know I couldn't take it. I mean, it's hard enough for people to take it on a battlefield, but if you saw the evil that human beings have done to other human beings, if we saw what was being done to other human beings today, we would just break down and collapse. When we think of the millions of people who've been raped, murdered, tortured, not to mention just mean things we say to each other, right? And hateful things, and yelling at each other, and verbally abusing each other, and on and on and on and on it goes. It's more than we can understand and take in. So so with all the good things in the world's, something's radically wrong with us, right? Something's radically wrong with us as human beings. It's an utter mess. When you make a mess, let me apply this to something else. If you mess up your room, if you're a messy person, right? You don't clean up your room. You mess up your room. It's a lot of work to clean it up, right? I used to say to my children, didn't always work. I wasn't real strong on making them clean up their rooms, especially as they got older. When they were little, yeah, but as they got older, teenagers, it'd be like, that's up to you. But I would say, here's what you do. When you come home and you take that thing off, you either throw it in the laundry or you hang it up. Because I'm not going to clean up that room for you, And it's going to take you a lot longer to clean it up later. That didn't always work, They didn't always follow my advice, which is shocking. They didn't always do that. But just imagine this happened in Minnesota. In Minnesota, I forget if it was a high school or junior high, but these kids came in one night, broke into a school, and they got on, they had equipment in the school, I don't know for what, and the kids got on, the forklifts or whatever they were, and they trashed that school. Millions and millions of dollars of damage. 30 minutes. If we wanted to trash this room right now, break windows. No, don't do it. But we could do so much damage to the room. So where am I going with all this? It takes a lot longer to clean up a mess than to make a mess. Whether it's your bedroom, school, this room, our lives, it's one thing. We can mess up our lives in seconds, right? Cleaning up the mess, whoa, that takes a long time, doesn't it? That's the point of this chapter. Adam introduced a mess into the world. How great is Jesus Christ's grace? Because he cleans it up. He doesn't just clean up the mess, he takes us beyond where Adam was, right? Not only did he clean up the mess, but he gave us his righteousness. So, that's amazing grace. And you don't think it's very amazing, we're back to where we were before. You don't think it's very amazing if you don't think there was much of a mess. Right? Yes, I'm saved. Yeah, that's wonderful. But if you really see what the world is, apart from God's grace, then you have hope. Because if he can clean up the mess Adam brought into the world, and you brought into the world, he can do anything. You can turn it around. That's why we should always have confidence in ministry. We don't have a promise, but we should always have confidence. God can turn anybody around. He can do it. And he's turned many around in history. So, there's hope. Now, chapter 6. Paul ends chapter 5 saying, look, the more sin multiplies, the more grace multiplies. And so, chapter 6 says, I've got it. I've got it. I've got it. That is fantastic. So, let's sin more. Let's sin more. The more we sin, the more God pours out his grace, the more his grace shines. So let's sin even more, so that his grace will shine even more. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And Paul says, absolutely not. Actually, I think Paul is responding here to opponents who are Jewish who say, Paul, something's really wrong with your gospel. I think these Jewish opponents don't actually think you should sin more. I think these Jewish opponents thought Paul's gospel is wrong because it encourages people to sin more because he's so exalted God's grace. But Paul's answer to that is, no, you're completely misunderstanding my gospel because I don't encourage people to sin more. In fact, people can't sin more. They can't. They can't. Why not? Because they died to sin. Believers are dead to sin. What? Dead to sin? You mean we can't sin at all? We're perfect? Right? If I had a heart attack right now, got down dead, right in front of you, you could curse me, you could kick me, and I wouldn't sin. No matter what you did to me, because I'd be dead. Right? I would not sin. But is that what Paul means? Well, let's see what he means. How did we die to sin? Oh, when we were baptized. When we were baptized. Verse 3. We died to sin when we were baptized. So Paul believes in baptismal regeneration. No, he doesn't, because Paul did not believe in infant baptism. If you do believe in infant baptism in here, we do love you. We're Baptists, you know that. So Paul was a Baptist. You know? Just announcing that right now. Put that in your notes in big letters. Paul was a Baptist. So Paul did not believe in baptismal regeneration. He didn't even believe in infant baptism. Why does he bring up baptism? He brings up baptism because people were, when people got saved, they all got baptized. All of them. No one said, should I get baptized or not? Because I was already baptized when I was a kid. Should I do it? But there was no one baptized, right? I'm assuming I'm right here, right? There's no one baptized as a kid because everybody was a Baptist. Oh, what a beautiful day that was, right? So everybody got baptized when they got converted, right? So how do you know someone was a Christian? Well, they're baptized. I'm not saying baptism saves you. No more than a Christian today would say, I went forward in a Billy Graham crusade. I mean, that's getting a little dated, but you still know what I'm talking about. I went forward in a Billy Graham crusade, and I'm saved. I'm saved by virtue of going forward. The physical act saved me. No one understands the person that he's saying. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? No one understood Paul to be saying baptism in and of itself saved you, but there is no such thing as an unbaptized Christian. So he could say, when did you die to sin? When you were converted. Because when you were converted, you were buried with Christ and you were raised with Christ. And because you died with Christ, I'm not reading all the verses here, but if you look at the language very closely, when you died with Christ, the tyranny, the rule, the dominion of sin is broken. So Paul isn't talking about perfection, but a new orientation. I like what Francis Schaeffer says. Francis Schaeffer says, as Christians, we have substantial, significant, and observable victory over sin. I think that's exactly right. Substantial, significant, and observable victory over sin. But not perfect. Why do we have such victory over sin? Because we've died with Christ, right? And the end of chapter 6, because we're slaves of righteousness now. So we're new. We're new creatures now in Christ. What does that mean? Before we were believers, we enjoyed sin. Now we still sin. One mark that you're truly a believer is you hate it. You hate it. And you grieve over your sin. Isn't that a helpful point? Yes? Did I say? Oh, yes, thank you. Embarrassing. Very good. Thank you. Okay. Man, time is just getting away from me. Because now we got to go to chapter 7. When we experience experience victory over sin, we also experience victory over the law. Because the law, in and of itself, can't transform us. Commands, so I'm summing up what Paul's saying in chapter 7. Commands are good. All the commands are from God, and they're good therefore. But commands, when the unregenerate receive a command, if there's quick punishments, of course, they may avoid the activity. But, and John Kimball preached on this in chapel, if you didn't hear it, it was a very good sermon on covenant, right? That was a great sermon. You could go back and listen to it, as all our sermons are on the website, of course. But that's the 10th commandment. Paul talks about covenant. Isn't it interesting? He takes that commandment. Because I think Paul, growing up, he did honor his parents, right? I don't think Paul probably ever stole anything. Paul never committed adultery. Paul never murdered, right? I don't think, did Paul ever lie? Well, probably he did. But not very much, you know? So, yeah, I think he was very, very obedient. But when it comes to coveting, right? The commandment not to covet. I think Paul is relating his experience. By the way, some people think he's talking about Israel or Adam there. I think it's Paul. But actually it ends up being, whether you're talking about Israel, Adam, or Paul, it's the same thing at the end of the day, right? Does the law change you? Paul says that coveting relates to desires. And then he said, then I found that the prohibition that I shouldn't do it actually stirred in me the desire to do it. And I found I couldn't overcome the desires to sin in me. That's where the law says the right thing, but where does it give you the power? Now, I remember this even when I was a very small child. I went to a Catholic school when I was little, and they had a rule, first grade, and the rule was do not step on the grass. And I remember as a child walking by in the sidewalk and deliberately putting my foot on the grass. Like, why did I do that? Because they were not going to tell me what to do. Even as a 6-year-old, you know? I mean, who cares about that? Why did I care? Because I was rebellious, right? Because the commandment actually provoked in me the desire to transgress it. That's exactly what Paul's talking about. We've all experienced that. Augustine tells a story about them stealing pears. Do you remember that? He said, we weren't hungry, but it's wrong. So, because it's wrong, it's more fun, right? The very wrongness of it stimulates our desire. So Paul says, look, there's nothing wrong with the law, but there's something wrong with us. We need to be changed. So here's what I want to say. All the liberal churches are failures because they're stuck here. Because I can sum up the liberal gospel in 2 words. Be nice. Be nice. Be loving. Be kind. Well, of course. I mean, what be nice, be loving, be kind is we disagree on some things, right? But here's our fundamental complaint. We can't do it. We won't do it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work just to say to people, be nice. Be loving, be kind. Because the law can't do that. That's what Paul discovered. The law can't accomplish that. You need to die. You need the death and resurrection of Christ. You need an apocalyptic, invasive act of God in your life. You need to be converted. You need to die with Jesus. So that's the gospel, isn't it? The gospel is, the liberal gospel is really Jesus didn't need to die again, did he? Just be nice, do the best you can, come on. But that's not our gospel. Our gospel is we need a death and a resurrection. So, what about the last part of Romans 7? That's a very, very contested passage. I can say to you with all honesty, I have argued every side of this question. I gave my original installation talk at Bethel Seminary in 1986 or 87 or whatever it was, arguing that this was Christian experience. next day, I'm serious, the very next day after I gave my installation talk, I changed my mind. Then, so I taught for a whole year, but it was pre-Christian. Then the next year, by the time I came and taught it again, I taught it as pre-Christian. It seemed like whatever came out of my mouth, as soon as it came out of my mouth, I changed my mind again back. And so, why should I tell you what I believe then? Since I've changed my mind so many times, which I have. So when my first edition of Romans, I wrote the pre-Christian, the Christian, and then I came up with the view that was revealed to me from on high. And that is, and this is what I still believe today, and maybe it's wrong, it probably is wrong, I don't know. This is what I believe. It's both. Saying, both. I love that. Both sides of me are happy. Because, why do I think it's both? Because I think this chapter is, does the law transform people who are fleshly? Definitely not non-Christians. The law, and insofar as Christians still struggle with the flesh, and we do, we experience what's found here too. So, I think it's a both and not an either or. So, people feel really strongly about this in different ways. I would just say this, what's the cash out of this? It's such a long argument. Take Romans sometime if you can. What's the cash out of this? I think the cash out of this is Christians are transformed. We're new. We have substantial, significant, and observable obedience. And we're still deeply flawed, I think. I would just want to say, this doesn't prove I'm right. My experience bears that out. My experience with famous Christians, now I've known quite a few. Yeah, every one of them is flawed. Every one of them. And they're godly people. But they're flawed. Every church you go to, it's flawed. That doesn't mean it's not godly. That doesn't mean it's not good. So, it helps, it spares us from naivete. And from false expectation. Of course, we want God to work in powerful ways, and He does. But if we get into our minds that there's a Christian utopia on this earth, we're going to be deeply disappointed. And it can even cause people to fall away when they see that. I believe I've seen that. I think I could name names here, even at Southern Seminary. But obviously, I'm not going to do that. But, I think it's an important issue. Well, I'm not everywhere I want to be, but I've talked about so many things, and I wanted you to have a chance at least for 5 minutes to say something. So we just pick it up at chapter 8 and do the best we can next time. Maybe I've talked so fast and said so many things that it's just like, what just happened?
When Abraham believed that life would come